great stuff. And we do have a couple wind-ups. You mentioned on 78s, we have lots of 78s in the museum that people just don't know what to do with them anymore. Nobody has record players, let alone 78s. We have a couple wind-ups there at the museum as well. I have an RCA that we bought a few years ago at an antique store in Coos Bay or North End. And we have an old stand-up version of it's a console. It's a stand-up wind-up from White's Sewing Machine Company. Back in the early the 1900s, a lot of people were into phonograph players, and a lot of furniture companies were making these consoles and buying the parts, whatever the mechanical parts from other companies, and then they made their own phonograph players. And so what I have is a White Sewing Machine Company, and it's an X model, so I'm pretty sure it's an experimental unit. And it works because I changed out the motor in it, and for the wind-up part of it. With another one, it doesn't really play really nicely, but it does cool. It is really cool to listen to those old mechanical record players. And the kids, when they come to the museum, love it. The one thing I'd like to have for the museum, which I don't have, is a cylinder player. Those are just wonderful. They got the big old marigold horns on there. Some are just, they're called a crane that pulls these things up in the air. But they're just gorgeous technology for back in those days. And so that's one of the wish lists that we would like to have for the museum. Update on what we do is I started collecting radio shows by listening. But back when I was a teenager, I lived with my father. My mom and dad were divorced when I was quite young. So I went to live with my dad when I was 14 or 15. He lived in Michigan, we lived in California. And so I went to live with my dad, and I worked at a dairy farm in southern Michigan, the Hillsdale County borders, the Indiana-Ohio border. It's all farmland there. And a lot of cows, lots and lots of cows. And you know what the cows smell like when they're out there in the so that's why. So I worked at this dairy farm on night shifts. So we had two guys. One did the day shift, I did the night shift during the summer. And it was like lots of cows. You start at one end, and then you finish up, and the other guy would start back again. Not so many cows there were. It was just a 24-hour-a-day cycle of milking all these cows. And so listening on nights, I got tired listening to music or whatever. So to pass the time, milking the cows, it was on machine, I didn't know. We had a radio there, and I found a radio station. I'm not sure it was in Canada or somewhere that was playing old-time radio shows. I got to really liking it, so I was like, wow, that's really cool. I never heard this stuff before, and I was a TV generation. So listening to radio shows, it was The Shadow, I think, Suspense. First suspense program I remember was listening to The Hitchhiker with Orson Welles, and that got me hooked ever since. And so I collected the radio shows through my youth. I have lots of records and tapes, medium. So I have everything you have. We have an 8-track. A lot of old-time radio shows were on 8-track in the early days. Albums. We have a reel-to-reel deck of Sony that we bought a couple of years ago. And so all these are mediums that they have for the old-time radio. And now they're all MP3. You know, pretty much get anything on MP3 nowadays. But we have so collecting. I got lots of the LPs are great for me because I love the artwork on them. There's a lot of companies that did these back in the 70s and 80s. So and also a lot of tapes and CDs came later, and then the MP3s. Back in 2003, I started an online company called Audio Adventure, and we were selling MP3 CDs. So you put like 100 shows on a CD, and they were big files, but they were entertaining enough. So we were making those and selling them. I was doing quite well, and then back in 2000, early 2000, no one knew what MP3s were. Now everybody knows what MP3 players are. So that was a hurdle that we had to go through to get people, what's an MP3? So I was like, okay, this is a sound file. We have to have these special players to play them It was before iPhone, iTunes, and all this other stuff that was out there. So anyway, so I lost it. It was really great because I had the domain name for a long time. But my dad passed away, and he was my domain registrar, and so I lost the domain, and it went away forever. I couldn't get it back because it wasn't registered. My name was registered my dad's name. I couldn't prove that it was actually mine, so it kind of sucked. But anyway, so we going forward with the museum, we had collecting this stuff is listening to the show, being a fan of the shows and the pictures. We have lots of pictures of the museum. This is just a little sample here of the ones with the microphones. These are all studio pictures that they would send, publicity stills, I guess they would call them. So we have lots of these at the museum. We have a lot of artwork, a lot of covers of the LPs I was talking about framed up on the walls. People could see what the artist renditions of a lot of this stuff was. So we have just lots of pictures, a lot of we have in the museum mostly is these premiums, and that's kind of what the museum was focused on is the radio premiums. And listening to the shows, being a fan of the shows, I was really kind of captivated by the offerings. You know, they would have. So one of my favorite, well, first one I bought was a Sergeant Preston police whistle, and originally it was a box top in like 25 cents. So I was able to buy this on eBay. So I listened to the commercial and I thought, what if those are available out there? And sure enough, there's tons of people that collect this stuff. And so I've had to meet them online. I've become friends with some of these guys that are collectors as well. And so we swap stories and just, you have a whole, like you guys are all the radio guys, and so there's other collectors of this stuff. So it's a lot of fun. And so that was the first one I bought. Oh, I wish I would have brought it with me, but I didn't have it. My phone's dead, so I can't play the actual commercial that captivated me to get into this. And it was a police whistle, Sergeant Preston police whistle. It's got his little signature on the gold-plated police whistle. And so that was my first item. And so after that, it kind of fell away. I don't know. I can't really describe it. I like your shirt over it says one word. Ben is radio. I promise. I can promise it to my wife. She knows my obsession with this stuff. And so we have. So it just kind of snowballed, and it just grew and grew and grew and grew, and then now we have a building. Our building it's a two-story building in downtown Southern, built in 1916, and we're on the bottom floor, and we're pretty much packed in there with display cases and the wall-to-wall stuff, radio, memorabilia. And this is only part of it. And so we have, how I got into this was, my occupation is a healthcare. I'm a med tech at a assisted living place. And I was also doing home care, kind of in between jobs. So I was doing home care, and I would take stuff out to my clients, that were 80, 90 years old. And I'd say, you remember this? Do you remember Dick Tracy's Secret Service Patrol? And they'd say, oh yeah, Jack Armstrong, All-American Boy. They loved it. So I showed them the actual material, and it brought back a lot of memories for them. So after that point, I started worrying about doing some museum work. So I contacted a museum in Springfield, Oregon, and we did an exhibit there, and that was 2014, I believe. And we had it was really successful. We were there for 2 months, and they said it was the largest private collection ever displayed at their museum. That was several years ago. We've probably tripled or quadrupled in size since then. Wow. That was a real great opportunity for us. And how that happened is that we have we know a guy in Eugene. We started going to Fred Kraft's Radio Redux, and then Fred Kraft does radio reenactments in front of an audience like they used to do back in the old days, back in the 40s and 50s when they had live radio performances. So we started going to his shows. I got to meeting with Fred. We started doing exhibits for his performances out in the lobby area. So we've been with Fred now for probably 2013 or before that even. And so we got a lot of response from that. So after we did the Springfield Museum, we did the the Eugene Air and Space Museum, because we got lots of radio shows where, like you can see here in this display case, we're aviation related. We have Captain Midnight, Sky King, Jimmy Allen. There's also space ones. There's Space Patrol, Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, just to name it a few. Here in this one, I have a Buck Rogers ray gun from 1948. So it was a gift from one of my daughters a few years ago. And I told her I really wanted a Buck Rogers ray gun, and she picked one up. I have all of them down but one of the models, and that's on the wish list. So I have a big wish list. So, but you know, it comes. One of my first on my wish list is you'll see here in this display case, I have a blue hole shadow ring from 1941. Like I said, my phone is almost died, so I can't play the commercials for these, but they're really kind of cool. So you could listen to the offering of the blue hole shadow ring, glow in the dark shadow ring during the episode. We also have a specimen, little fragment of a blue coal, a piece of blue coal. It was called blue coal because it was dyed blue to give it a distinction between the other coal, black coal. So also that was my top of my wish list was this ring here. The ring. So there are a lot of other shadow stuff at the museum. So we have we've been doing probably last year. We started the museum 3 years ago, probably 3.5 years ago now, and we decided we had to move out of our house, and we were renting, and the owners weren't going to sell it. So all the stuff was in my garage, in boxes, and just kind of. So we thought, well, let's start a museum. So we did, and that's how it got all started there in Salem. The rent's cheap, and we live there, so that's why we picked there. I mean, it would be nice if we could be in a place like Portland or Eugene or another large towns where we have people coming through it on a regular basis. But we're in Southern, we don't have any really downtown foot traffic, so we rely a lot on bringing the stuff out. So that's where we started going out to different arenas that with people that were in the related businesses or clubs or interests that we go to, like this, like you guys here have a radio club. And we do the Fredcast Radio Redux. We just started going to Tesla Radio Stories in Portland, and that's how they got a hold of Pat, and then that kind of brought us to you guys for this meeting. So we started going to all these other groups. We're also doing assisted living places and retirement homes. Now where we're at, locally in Douglas County and Lane County, and we call that the Theater of the Mind Traveling Time Machine. So we'll take stuff out of the museum and go to these other places as well, and they really enjoy it a lot because these people lived it, and it brings back a lot of memories for them. I mean, if I was to see, growing up in TV, we didn't have. We had the Rocky and Bullwinkle and a lot of cool cartoons. Now that all the cartoons kind of suck. Back in those days, we had some great stuff. I mean, Huckleberry Hound and Yogi Bear, and all these other ones. So, but I just fell in love with radio, and I just want to share it to as many people as possible. So that's what we're always trying to find places, venues to show this stuff and get the interest. So we're right off I-5. You may know where Sutherland is. We're near Roseburg. We're north of Roseburg, about an hour south of Eugene. And it's not, people drive that road. They think in Sutherland, I think there's 40,000 vehicles drive on I-5 every day. So that's a lot of traffic. So we got to get the word out. So I'm not really concerned about the location per se. But we just got to get the word out so people know that we're there. And we're open on. So I work full time. She works. So we're open Thursday, Friday, Saturdays from 11 to 4. To generate interest in the local community about the museum, we put in the theater last year, and she bought us some theater seats from her old theater in Roseburg. Brought those in. We have 24 vintage theater seats in the museum, a lot of projector and a screen. So it's kind of cool. We played a couple. Halloween, we did Frankenstein, Dracula with the 1931 versions. So those are fun. We're going to try to rent out the building to kind of help with expenses for birthday parties and stuff like that. And but anyway, it's been a great hobby. I mean, just plus it's investment. I mean, you guys collect radios. I mean, everything goes up in value. I mean, people are going to be collecting this stuff for years and years and years. So this is my IRA, I guess, and and my inheritance for my kids and my wife, of course. But you know, it's kind of funny because we have 5 kids between us, and but none of the kids, except one of our daughters, really appreciates this stuff. And our little granddaughter, we have grandkids too, 9 altogether. And so our granddaughter, she's 4, and she loves the museum. She likes going there and helping. She'll sweep the floor and mop and anything in there new. I mean, we got tons of stuff in there. She'll spot it right away and say, "Oh, that's new, Papa. That's really cool." So she's she's got an eye for this stuff too, and she loves the museum. And so we've had a lot of success with trying to get people locally to kind of come through. I'll let my wife talk about her experience. One of the coolest things we have at the museum is we have a 1948 long-range frontier town. Almost been missing one building that we have. But anyway, I'm going to have her talk a little bit about some of the school stuff that we've been doing with the kids.
So, go ahead.
Do you guys have any website, any information on the internet?
Yes, we do.
So you guys have...
We have brochures here. We're out some brochures. We have a website. It's called radiodaysmuseum.com. I'm going to be doing it on .org eventually. We're currently not a nonprofit. Everything we do is mostly out of our own pocket. So we support the museum ourselves. You know, we love the place. It's like we're actually, instead of having it in storage, we have to have it out to the public to see it and enjoy it. So that's what we're at. So we have also Facebook. Radio Days Museum is on Facebook and the website.
So I was just going to tell you a little bit about, I mentioned to Franklin that a couple years ago I did a field trip, 100 kids ages from 5 to 11. I worked for the school district, and so I had that connection with the kids and special needs kids. And so a couple summers ago, they came through about 100 kids, so aged from 5 to 11. So talking to them at the different levels about the museum and the different things that kids did and collections and what kids did before there was, you know, the new iPhones or new games and things like that and TV. So I had to talk to them at their understanding, you know, their age level 5 to 11. And one of the biggest things that we have there is the Lone Ranger Frontier Town, and it's all the cardboard pieces that the kids played with, you know, back, I don't know what year, 1948. And that was one of the biggest excitements for the kids to be able to touch that. And so, you know, they're the original pieces. So I told my husband, I said, we're going to need to make duplicates because these are the original pieces and they're very fragile. And that was a great excitement for the kids to be able to touch. So having hands-on experience with different things that kids played with back then. So talking to them about the history and it's exciting. It's exciting to be able to share things about, you know, what theater of the mind, you know, they need to use their imagination. So bringing that excitement to them was a good experience.
Roger, you talked about the iPhones. We have 3 samples of who remembers the tin can phones? In your childhood, you know, you take the 2 tin cans, put some string to it. So we have 3 examples here. We have Dick Tracy's Secret Service telephones, Tom Mix phones, and then Ralston had the Space Patrol phones. And these are tin can phones with the string. We also have some telegraph set from Tom Mix. Back in the old days when the radio shortwave guys know that you used to have you had to know Morse code and pass the test in the Morse code. So a lot of kids were learning this way back. This is from the 1930s and 40s and 50s. And so we got kids involved with technology even back in the days. But what they have now, I mean, you have an iPhone, you watch YouTube videos, and so this was a lot of the kids. We call it theater of the mind, but not only theater of the mind that you use your imagination, but you became part of the show. One of my favorite episodes or series is it's called Speed Gibson of the International Secret Police. Speed Gibson is a 16-year-old boy who's into aviation, radios, or whatever. His dad, uncle, is an orphan. He's raised by his uncle, Clint Barlow, who's the head of the International Secret Police. But the show is interactive. They also set out maps. So we talk about the frontier town. You get these maps, and you follow along. You listen to the episodes. You follow along where they're chasing the bad guy, the octopus, in China and all the areas. So a lot of the shows you used your imagination became part of the adventure. That's why they had these decoders and all this stuff. You listened to the episode, and you were part of that program. You weren't just watching it, you were actually part of it. So you had to decode the message. It wasn't just re-routine, there was a lot more information with these decoders and stuff too. But anyway, I just open up now to any questions you guys might have, or yes.
How much does it cost to get into the museum?
We're free. Free admission. We don't charge. We have a donation jar at the museum. We talked about doing some. We have coffee there. In the 3.5 years we've been open, I think I sold 1 cup of coffee. Maybe. And then we started doing the movies. We went on with that. I thought, well, we'll do that. See if we get people coming into the museum. But that kind of, we really haven't gone there yet. So we've only had a couple movies, and just a few people show up. We invested in popcorn, a commercial popcorn popper. Experience the whole thing with the movies. So anyway, we're just trying to get that. Yes.
My wife's in a scooter. Can she get to the second floor? Is there an elevator?
No, we don't have it. We don't have it.
We're
on the main floor. We're just on the main floor.
Oh, I thought you said something about the second.
Yeah, the building is 2 stories. We're only on the first floor.
But it's handicap accessible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
The most important part, how about the bathrooms?
Sutherland, we're north of Roseburg. Yeah. Any questions? All right.
Thank you very much. Now, there will be a short intermission after.